The Supreme Court is the Supreme Court. What the Supreme Court says represents the law. We respect it. We go by it. There is no other way. We had hoped that it would come our way, but it has gone the other way. It simply means that we have to go back to the High Court and get done with this quickly. We still have hope. We're not in despair.
By the grace of God,
yes. So
victory is assured.
Yes,
at the end of the day.
We will lose a little time. We still have to go back. That's all it means. But I'm very consoled by what the Supreme Court said, that he ought not to have been treated the way he was treated. His bail ought not to have been revoked. His home ought to have been invaded. All that is a consolation to us. So we have hope. Thank you very much.
Well, if in recent times you're listening to the commentaries of most Nigerians, there is now a process of judicial rascality. Because if the Supreme Court condemns all the processes, especially the rendition that brought him back to Nigeria, and you're not asking that he goes back to the court of, Federal High Court for the trial to start, I feel it's a lot of injustice. It's a lot of injustice in all forms of jurisprudence. So all I will say that we just leave it in the hands of God at the end of the day. How can somebody, it's difficult to make a comment because when you listen to the judgment when it started, it was clear that they accepted the illegality committed by the federal government of Nigeria in all aspects of it. And yet you went on to this, to remove the judgment of the appeal courts because of lack of jurisdiction, which they led about the lower court. I don't think that is fairness in any consideration, but they say that they are final because it's the Supreme Court. They are also infallible because it is the final court of the land. So we'll go back to the Federal High Court and hopefully we'll probably request that a bail is granted at that level. So for me, it's a win-win affair. At least something has seriously started. And I hope that the process at the Federal High Court will be, that will be expedited so that the young man can come and be useful to the society. But the only unfortunate thing is that the insecurity in Nigeria, and especially in the southeast, will be worsened off because people don't believe what is happening in this country anymore. So if the Supreme Court of Nigeria is not even looking at the implications of what is going on, Boko Haram is on, bandits are on, IPOD is on. So where is the country that we're all looking forward to? May God bless this country. Thank you very much.
For the camera, sir, those who don't know, sir.
Sorry?
For those who don't know, your name for the camera, sir. Your name.
I'm Chief Dan Olasi. An Igbo small statesman.
The 3rd December. For us in the opposition lawmakers and opposition political parties who I speak for, this judgment today is very shocking to us because we missed an opportunity to lay the foundation and path for political resolutions of these issues. And it's so painful that the eminent jurists understood the issues, but in their conclusion decided to arrive at something that is still worrisome to us. And what is that? The Supreme Court agrees today that the extraordinary rendition of NNAMDI KANU from Kenya is illegal. That is the first victory that was recorded today. Then the Supreme Court also said today that the invasion of his house by the security agencies that led to killings and the man running to safety is also illegal. These are the foundations. And then the Supreme Court also goes further to say that the revocation of his bail ought not to have happened, thereby saying that he's supposed to be enjoying the freedom, which is the very foundation of this struggle up to Supreme Court. So now what happened? If the Supreme Court agrees that the extraordinary rendition from Kenya is illegal, and the Supreme Court agreed today that the invasion of his house is illegal, and the Supreme Court agreed today that he ought not to have been declared bail, then why is NNAMDI KANU still in DSS custody today? The Supreme Court should have not only freed him, but lampooned those who committed those atrocities. Yes. And when they talk about some of these conventions that were cited by lawyers of NNAMDI KANU are not national laws, I disagree. You know the extradition treaty that was signed by Malami, the Attorney General.
Yes.
That treaty, that act, condemned extraordinary rendition. So it's there in the law. Even as elementary law students, we are told systems, method of forming laws, conventions, inclusive as well. So if you have international conventions that have been codified and ratified, they immediately becomes law. Like African Charter on Human Rights and so on and so forth will cite. These are laws. So why are you saying that we did not sign national law? National laws were cited. So for whatever reason, like I said, they are remitting back to the federal high court. We strongly believe that the first thing to do is to grant bail to NNAMDI Kanu. Let's go back to the foundation. It's to grant him bail. But let me also appeal to the president. I'm not saying he should interfere in judicial matters, but there is need for us to find a middle ground to bring peace to Southeast. Many things has gone wrong in the East. Is it that Nigerians don't feel for the destruction going on in the Southeast? Businesses are being burned to the ground. People are being killed. All sorts of criminal activities is going on. Even security agencies are also being killed. And whenever anybody is killed in the East, they call it unknown gunmen. Don't we want, timely resolution of these issues? And we said that the first foundation is to grant NNAMDI Kanu unconditional bail, and then we'll commence that process of reconciliation and harmonization of these issues. People in the East are human beings. Everybody was expecting that this Christmas was going to be the first beginning of returning peace to the Southeast, because people were expecting, people were warming up for it. And then a few days to Christmas, the Supreme Court agrees that his arrest was illegal, that the rendition was illegal, that the invasion of his house was illegal, but he should remain in DSS custody.
I came to court today to show or to demonstrate solidarity with NNAMDI Kanu, the distinguished senator representing his senatorial constituency. But you see, the ruling today was in part disappointing and in part satisfactory. A lot of people might say it's a bit ambiguous, so I'm going to speak very briefly so that I do not preempt what is going to come out of the registry of the court. We are going to promptly apply for certified true copies of what the justice stated in court today. But some things that he made clear were as follows: that number one, NNAMDI Kanu was enjoying his bail when his house was invaded, and that was wrong. If you recall, we had obtained a judgment in 2022 at the High Court in Abia State, awarding him 1 billion. So this indirectly affirms that judgment, and that the manner of bringing him into Nigeria was also wrong. But despite all of that, the Supreme Court found cause to send this case back to the Federal High Court. And sending it back to the Federal High Court is actually called remission. And when they remit with instructions. We don't know yet what those instructions are, because we don't have certified true copies of the judgment and the judgment order. So in days to come, that will be available and will be made available to the press.
Okay, please, when the judge said appeal and cross appeal, what does it mean?
Well, the government appealed against the discharge granted by the Court of Appeal, and we cross-appealed, against the stay of execution granted by the Court of Appeal. So these were the issues. But what came out was that the revocation of his bail was wrong. So this, in fact, has created a basis to further seek his release, through some other means.
So the judge is saying that the trial should continue. What does it mean for your team now?
Well, basically, it's going to continue, or it's going to proceed in accordance with the instructions the Supreme Court has issued. And those instructions will be clearer when we get them in writing. So the judge, or the Federal High Court judge, will have to be restricted within those. It's called a remission. So they have to carry out, the Federal High Court has to carry out the strict instructions of the Supreme Court.
Thank you for watching. If you're new to this channel, consider subscribing so you won't miss out any of our latest video.